Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what sodium chloride, the science of common salt, the symbol of divine ratio. As I've been very clearly talking about universal consciousness. And over, one point I want everybody to understand: Amrit, nectar, ambrosia is pure water. And it represents the whole thing in the divine consciousness, and 61.8034% should be on the earth, into the human body and into the cells. And why it is called universal divine solvent? Because it's the only thing which can exist in 5 states. Like in a solid form, it is ice. With a little heat from 0 degree to 4 degrees plus, it becomes a fluid form, liquid form, apadosh. Prithvi Bhumi, so called. Second, water, apa or jal. Third, when heated to a certain degree, it starts becoming steam and it can burn. And when further divided into hydrogen and oxygen, when temperature increases a particular high level, then when 1600 degree, it is an energy form, Akash Bhuta. Similarly, in subtle forms as well as unsubtle form, the 10 stages it can exist. So keeping that in mind, that water is very, very important, and that is what makes everything very vibrant in thing. And as far as I understand, glucose plus glucose put together become maltose, and what is removed from there is water. And again, when water is put into maltose, it gets converted in glucose and glucose. Similarly, sucrose is fructose and this. When they're together, this water is less. When water is put, it becomes again glucose and fructose. Similarly, lactose is the same story. And similarly, I find this common salt like sodium and chloride are separate two atoms. They become ionic stage only in water. Whatever the world might say, that is the important part which I am trying to make it very clear. Now come to the question of descent of elements and molecules started from the nature. I have been saying from the very beginning, the gods and goddesses of Vedas represent different elements and molecules of divine nature. And center or the most important part of Rig Veda, it is Agni, and that is the element, and that is what water is. Water has got fire even in solid form, liquid form, this form, or Vayu, or for that matter. It can exist in all the first stages. That is what I meant. And remaining from starting from hydrogen, helium to sodium, potassium, chloride and calcium, etc. At least there are 14 different elements which are very essential for the human body, and I am trying to concentrate only on that because my objective is to see every man and woman is perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and human being and perfectly in tune with universal consciousness. As a result, they can make themselves healthy, wealthy, wise and happy and teach the same thing to the world, so that everybody is united, educated, enlightened and empowered. Only that world could be perfectly comfortable with themselves, comfort with others. There will not be fights at all. For world peace is the impeccable wisdom of Akhand, Akhand and Akhand only. Similarly, the Indra, the king of God, is the rain god of water, and everything came in water down, and with thunder, lightning and rain, all the elements and molecules came down from the cosmos to the grid, and biological life started in warm saline water. That make it again solid component of solid salt is essential for life itself. So is water, so is the temperature. So those are the things very important when it comes to the homeostasis. 10 variables, and one of them is the sodium and potassium or electrolytes, and then is water, and that's a component. Then all requirements of life came from that, and all the waste products were expelled into the ocean is the reality of biological life. And I want everybody to understand, so the sequence is understood, how they were created in the universe, how they fell down, how from ocean they come and why ocean is the most important, and understanding that is more important. And similarly, mathematics is very important. When carbon and hydrogen is methane, that is energy with a 10, water with 10, carbon dioxide with 22, and that is where the entire divine mathematics center starts from the very beginning. Now comes the question, sodium chloride, the common salt. Let's understand what artificial intelligence or Google is giving a vote sodium chloride. Sodium chloride, also known as salt, common salt, table salt or halite, is an ionic compound with the chemical formula of sodium chloride. Is an ionic compound. That means there is a water content there which binds them together. Sodium as an atom and chloride as an atom do not work. They are together only in an ionic form, and ionic form is because of water directly or indirectly. And it represents a 1:1 ratio of sodium and chloride ions. That is what it is. I think is very clearly defined. Sodium chloride is a primary salt in seawater. Again, it is seawater and is a primary salt and is the most important for the whole universe. And as I would say, hydrogen is the most powerful, lithium is less powerful, and sodium is lesser powerful than lithium and hydrogen, and potassium even less than that, and that also I have already explained in sodium potassium itself, how sodium potassium needs an ATP to work together outside and inside, and we are going to see more of that, and then see how beautifully is a sodium salt is going to help you to be very healthy person. Now come to another definition. Sodium chloride is an essential ionic compound found abundant in nature, in seawater and mineral and halite. That's what it is, another definition. It is vital for human health, widely used in food and key component in numerous industrial processes. For that matter, preservation of even pickles and other things only with salt as a preservative, it can make sure organisms don't grow in salt, because it absorbs the water from the organism and makes them good. That is one point which I am making it clear. Sodium and chloride as such ionic form, put around preservative in any form, higher the concentration, the chances of infection will not be there, because all the organisms have water. Without that water will not there. If they are surrounded by salt, that water from inside the organism or bacteria otherwise is taken out, and in dehydrated form, in anything in dehydrated form including bacteria, viruses or algae or other things also cannot exist, cannot function. That is one of the ways we use sodium chloride as such, as a preservative, as a healing process, as removing all the organisms. This is one of the oldest things given by itself, and that was nature design, and that's one of the first thing to do. Now come to the question, is water essential for ionic form? That's the question which is raised, and let me give you the answer from iron. Ions can exist without water, and they do in various in situations like plasma, ionic compounds and certain ionic related. But I still believe there is a water in a hidden form. If, as I told you, in sucrose, it is fructose and this, when put together it is the water which was taken out. That means it was water's play to separate or do together, and that is what it is this all about. While water is a common medium for dissolving salts and creating mobile ions, ions themselves are simply atoms and molecules with a net electrical charge. Say again, sodium by itself has got 11 electrons, but ionic it is 10, and that is very close to neon. So chloride by 17, but becomes negative, getting one more from sodium, it becomes charged like argon. So that is where they become very powerful, functioning like inert matter which cannot be dissolved, but they can function very well. And that is what I have experienced within thing. All these sodium and chloride or potassium by themselves can act as a medium extracellular and intracellular in such a way that they are like divine energies to us, what is right and what is not right. Now come to the question of Divyank, which I said we have to see in the form of Divyank ratio. Right on top I have given you one number 161.8034 into 100. This is a Divyank rectangle. Height is 100, width is 161, and this is how I had developed for the first time in history and mankind in 2002 itself, 2001 itself. But to give the precise point, it took me another 14 years to give a define to how to form the formula exactly 161.8034 in 2015. Now same formula is 61.8034% into 38 point, this also the same thing as on top. But this is where whole definition comes, that becomes the most approximate decimal value of golden ratio, not what golden ratio is spoken about as 1.618 or 1.61803397, etc. So that is defective and man-made formulas, but divine formula which I have given 22 by 21 to the power of 10.344 based on the information in Vedas, Upanishads and scriptures and modified further with my intelligence. I think that is the precise, and that is what the world needs, and that we can correct all the defects which we have in maths, physics, chemistry, biology and medical sciences. Now come to the question. As I told you, this is 22 by 21 to the power of 10, 0.34419 equivalent to this, and this is the ratio, and square of the second one is equal to 100 times, and that is what it is. And pure water should be 61, and maintain that for all your life at regular interval. As you grow older, try to drink water every 2 hours, small quantity, because it cannot be retained. Another problem as you grow older, all the excess carbohydrate you take is converted into adipose tissues around your abdomen and other parts. As a result, water content comes down and it's deposited. To avoid not to put on weight and maintain the same weight which you have at 21 years, even at 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s, would be a phenomenal. That can be done only when you have the solid muscles, bone structure, everything solid, and the water content is clear, and that is the sign of health, and no aging process will be there for a person who is really keeping water content to 61.80. I am again and again saying, and that is objective of my life. That is Amrit I call, that is Ambrosia I call, that is immortality I call. Now come to the question, intracellular and extracellular fluid. Intracellular fluid is the fluid within the cell and extra is outside. Again, when come to the outside, it is sodium and inside is potassium. But everything from water, glucose, and other things, there are two things. What is hydrophilic and another is hydrophobic. Hydrophilic things cannot go, but hydrophobic like glucose, oxygen can pass through the cell membrane, which is lipid bilayer. Hydrophilic remain outside. Another thing, that's why they need ATP to go or work in symbiotic or use the proteins, and as a result it's slow. And I think that is what is important to see how you're going to be perfectly healthy, wealthy, wise and happy. Now come to the question of this. Divine drama are the periodic table. As I've seen the periodic table, you see the first period is hydrogen and helium. Hydrogen is very powerful energy. Helium is a divine energy which is Antaratma or indwelling soul. Very thing. Second thing is lithium on one side. After hydrogen is too powerful, cannot form ionic compound with water, cannot be used inside the body. Similarly, on the right side, you have fluoride, which can go into ionic form but is very dangerous, and as a result it creates more problem and bones get dissolved by and large, so it is not used. Third periodic table, sodium on one side with 11, in water it becomes 10, and chloride with 17 becomes 18, close to argon, and they function very well in the process. I think once that is understood, you are very clear. Fluoride cannot be used, lithium cannot be used, hydrogen cannot be used, helium can be used inside, but the people who are in tune with helium, they will never make a mistake. So chloride and sodium are the good combination for extracellular fluid. And now I am going to show chloride has got 17 electrons and sodium has got 11. Now 17 divided by 11 is very close to Divyank ratio. You cannot expect 6 to 1 in every way, but very much clear. And once this is, I said, this is a ratio. Is it surprising? And I want everybody to think in mathematics, and symbolic language is mathematics. Only correction can be in divine mathematics and symbolic form, not in any other writing. Anything which can be converted into mathematical design, precise, concise to perfection, and also a mathematical symbol in the same form, they are the one which will not create any problem thereafter. And that's what I'm saying. This most approximate value of Divyank ratio or the golden ratio, very close to 1.1618034. That's it. Now come to the question of divine periodic table. As I told you, sodium ion has a 10 and chloride is 8, again like neon and argon. And sodium is resembles the neon as inert matter, I told you, and I have put soul this, and I make helium is indwelling soul, which is separate from other thing. It has to be carries all the universal knowledge within it, including sun, hydrogen and helium. They are the most powerful energy molecules in the world. And helium will let you know about hydrogen as well as helium, where they are the most abundant in the universe. Hydrogen and helium is like that. Chloride results like argon, which is like 18. Neon is 10. So again, the very close inert, because inert matter cannot be broken, dissolved, otherwise cannot form. It has to work in that form. Only in that form is powerful. Everything else would be usable only in ionic form as such. Hence they represent inert soul consciousness. And as a result, as helium is able to give you truth and all the wisdom by itself, then sodium can also give you, chloride can also give you, and potassium can also give you. For that matter, there are 14 elements including magnesium, calcium and other things, including iodine, which would produce something to make you aware of the what is life as such within the human body, and you are going to see as we move on. So extracellular soul consciousness and functions center around sodium and chloride only. Now this is the structure of both, how sodium and chloride get together as and how they have become ionic form, how one is converted to other. Sodium gives one electron from outside to the chloride, which is 7, it has to become 8. So 11 will become 10 and 17 will become 18. Is our picture is very clear, and that's how things work. Same thing you are giving, see how they form together to give is the structure of sodium chloride, and ionic form and atomic form is this. Now as I told you, this is simply a combination which is very clear. Extracellular is outside. You can include glucose, water content, sodium, chloride, etc. outside, and inside is potassium, glucose, everything. They go through ATP and the pump, and also artificial protein channels, etc., including water channels. And how they push through, you can see, and you're going to see more and more. And let me make it very clear, unless and to see all my videos as a sequence, starting from how it was created in the universe as a methane plus water and carbon dioxide, then glucose, other thing, only then you will have a clear knowledge in you, and forget about everything in the brain. Don't mug and film. Understand the concept and remember, and this is what it is all about. Now come to the medical sides, and I, being a medical doctor, let me make it very clear how I use salt content and water content as such to make myself very healthy. So sodium chloride is essential for volume, like blood volume. If you want to have the blood volume of 5 liters in the blood, in the body very clearly, you should have a sodium content of only 4 grams, not more than that. If it is going to be more than that, more water will get, and 5 liters could become 6 liters. As a result, all the disequilibrium or problems will arise thereafter. Similarly, blood pressure, if it is 4 grams of sodium chloride alone, blood pressure will be 120/74 only, and mean arterial blood pressure 93. But if you take too much of salt, your blood pressure will increase. Too much of salt will wrong the skin. Similarly, with respect to the diabetes and blood glucose, if you want your blood glucose to be only 111 milligram as an average to be healthy, wealthy, wise and happy, make sure you take only 4 grams per day, not more, not less. If you take less than 4 grams, you could have hypoglycemia, hypovolemia, hypotension, hypoproblem, and you could die because of hyponatremia itself. But if it is too much, it could be hyperstate. So ideal thing is take 4 grams at regular interval. Don't take too much at any given moment of time, and take water regularly, and as a result you can call ORS or oral rehydration solution with glucose, salt and water at regular intervals is a healthier way to be perfectly wet, and blood will never be thick, and this is a blood thinner than all the medicines you require. And people taking this would never have any problem with thickening colloid form. This so-called blood clot form will not be there, and the blood will be circulating properly. They will not have any problem which can lead to long-term defects. Now come to the question. As I told you, diabetes medicine, sodium and glucose work as a symbiosis. Digestive system, when sodium along with glucose together as symbiotic relationship, they are absorbed, not as a separate, and that makes the same thing with sodium and protein too. And same thing, sodium and potassium also work as a counter. And once we understand that how water and this symbiotic plane as well as complex things work together. Similarly, in kidneys, again, kidneys throat, water, anything up to 4 size of micron size, anything less than 4 micron size can easily pass through glomerulus. Glomerular filtration rate of 125 milligram, 180 liters per day, will throw water, sodium chloride, glucose, everything out, but they are reabsorbed again. But reabsorption of sodium and potassium get together. If the sodium content is not too high, glucose will not get reabsorbed fully, and that will be thrown out, and that is what happens in diabetic mellitus case. Up to 180 it will remain, but if it has gone more than 180, it will become much more. Then the reabsorption is defective, and that leads to diabetes mellitus, because that is urine too much and it's sweet in taste. And I think to avoid that, keep the glucose content also down and salt also down, and take only 61% of the carbohydrates which are complex from vegetarian origin only, and take proteins also over 25% which are vegetarian only, and then lipid content only thing and no fat. If this formula of Divyank as far as food is concerned, 61% of complex carbohydrates, 25% of that, and maybe 12 to 13 remaining lipids only, are in terms of like fruits and other things as well as nuts. If the combination put together, you will have a perfectly healthy life. Similarly, across the cell membrane also, it is a sodium potassium thing which work together, sodium potassium with ATP. Once this process is clear, I think you will be a perfectly healthy person. Now come to the question of application. The sodium or salt has a diverse use in food, preservation and seasoning, as a medicine for hydration and wound healing, and industry to produce chemicals like sodium carbonate and de-ice roads. It also used in water softening and textile industry and flint cleaning. Like that, the uses of sodium are plenty. with intelligence you can use it for even healing yourself completely. Even all the dirt can be removed by just sodium chloride water itself. Even a pranic healing, other thing, the whole thing is finally put into salt and thrown out of the body. And I think all the processes, if they center around sodium and you play the role, health, wealth, wisdom, happiness, talking, everything is beneficial with the help of sodium chloride as an applicant part. And I think that makes things very clear. Sodium chloride work as a consciousness, inner consciousness, like a neon and argon itself. And once that is understood, I think anyone who understands sodium and chloride combination would be very, very healthy. That is the limit of it has to be used, not under, not more. No hyponatremia, no hypernatremia. And that is healthiest way of doing. Now coming to this part, let's not talk about, I think it's enough for the day. The whole carry out message is that water has to be 61.80 and sodium and chloride is a Divyank ratio again, and this has to be maintained with 4 grams and spread over water and sodium content is said along with the glucose of 61 I think that way is very, very clear. And I think that would make, and I want everybody to be healthy, wealthy and wise only with education which is perfect, research which is perfect, enlightenment which is perfect, empowerment which is perfect. And with that I think we can all make the whole world healthy, wealthy, wise and happy, and they will be comfortable with money, name, fame, everything. There will not be a fight. And I want everybody to understand divine mathematics of Divyank, apply in physics, apply in chemistry, apply in biology, apply in life, and be a healthy, wealthy, wise person and make the world also healthy. And that was the objective of Akhand Vidyashram or Sanatana Dharma by and large. Let us be very honest. Let us talk of something which is good for everybody throughout the world. And this is the objective of Akhand Vidyashram. That's why I call it first institute of impeccable wisdom. Thank you very much.